And we're live.
And we're live. Welcome back to another Corona Geek, here where we talk all about mobile app development using Corona SDK. I'm your host, Charles McKeever, and today we have a very special guest with us here in studio. We've got Caleb Place, author of CBEffects. Hey, Caleb, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, Caleb, if you're not familiar with Caleb's library, it's a library to create particle effects. I'm going to get him to explain exactly what it is here in a moment and give us sort of his vision of it. But we're going to talk with him about where it came from, how it got started, where it's going, and all that kind of stuff. So we'll get into that in just a moment. Also joining us on the show is I almost said Dr. Brian Burton, but Dr. Burton's not here today. We've got Ed Marina from roaminggamer.com who's with us as always. Hey Ed, how you doing?
Hey there.
Hey, your screenshot is frozen up here. You just look like you got that. There you are. Now I can see you.
Oh, okay.
It was your thumbnail was like you had this mean look on your face.
Thanks a lot. That's what I get for pausing and muting for a while.
That's right. That's it.
Free show.
Totally threw it off. Well, hey, we've got a lot of stuff to get into today. We've got to talk about CBEffects, and then if we get into if we have time, we're going to talk maybe about a little touch coalescing. Which I know a lot of people are interested in, and we got some other things that we may or may not get to today. So just hang with us as we go through everything. Now, I want to remind everybody, if you didn't get a chance to catch Corona Geek 142, we covered, what is it, Ichi? We covered an Ichi game, core mechanics, creating bumpers, lining up bumpers, making sure that everything worked properly. We did a lot of talking about physics engines and how to sort of trick the eye into making things look right and all that. So if you didn't get a chance to check that out, go do so over at youtube.com/coronageek. That is probably the best place to find all of the videos that we have in the library. You can go back and watch any of them. I know that some people have come on and they've started watching from number one, and they just go right through the list, which is amazing considering there's 100 and some odd videos, but they do, and we appreciate it. So thanks for that, and they always send in questions too. So if you have a question, just let us know, and we'll try to point you in the right direction. Hey, Jason Schroeder's in here. Hey, Jason, how you doing?
Hey, everybody. From the mobile app studio once again.
I don't want to hear screeching and horns honking. So please be or not be mobile.
That's right. That's right. He looks like he's
to confirm the New York stereotype, but I live in Queens, so I don't know that it's necessarily going to be as noisy as all that.
Okay, yeah, I mean, don't be driving. That's all I'm saying.
Oh yeah. No, passenger seat. That wheel gets in the way.
You already saw that video this week with the 4 people in the car and the tire blowout. We don't need to see that with you. Okay?
No, I haven't seen that. I guess I'll have to Google it.
Yeah.
Well, for May, we're playing Corona Geek games. We're playing Boom Dot, which Jason is, I think, still the reigning champion on that. Is that correct?
I don't know. I haven't.
Well, if you haven't posted anything new,
you do.
Yeah, if you haven't posted anything new, you're either still the reigning champion at 227, or somebody has beat you. So we'll have to go check that out later. But yeah, I think you are in the lead for sure. So if you haven't checked that out already, go check the show notes. We've got a link to Boom Dot. You can play it on iOS or Android or all the other devices, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and Jason has really just been killing it with 227. It
is a fun game. It's actually more than any of the games that we played the last couple of months, and I only started doing the game things a couple of months ago. But it's got me thinking about doing my own sort of super casual one button game, because it did sort of wrap me up, and it became what I was doing on the subway for days. So
yeah, why not?
Yeah,
me too.
Right.
The dark side.
Also, if you haven't had a chance to go over to Udemy, there's a new course over there by Daniel Williams that you can take. It's a game development using Corona SDK, and he also covers ASO and adding ads into your app. So it's kind of an end-to-end course. He takes you through creating a game, Pirates versus Ninjas. So everything from getting the buttons set up to getting ninjas on the screen and having them interact and keeping score and all that stuff. I mean, it's a full game basically. So go check it out. We'll put a link in the show notes, but if you use the coupon code Corona Geek, all one word, then you will get the course for $9, which is incredible, an amazing amount of value for such a small dollar figure. So go check it out. You can also, while you're over there, you can preview some of the videos that are in the course, and you can see the outline of everything that's covered and stuff like that. And Daniel does an excellent job, so go check it out. And there was one last bit of news I want to cover just before we jump in here and talk with Caleb, is that you can now write Corona plugins with pure Lua, which Sergey, I'm sure is of interest to you. I know you wanted to write plugins. Are you going to be writing any plugins in Lua?
Well, how does it different from just Lua library?
Yeah, so that's a good question. The blog post, which we'll put a link to in the show notes, talks about the fact that prior to this new way of doing things, you had to still package things up in sort of a native wrapper and then publish it as a plugin. This stuff is all using pure Lua code, so you really don't have to do any of that extra administrative stuff. And it's all covered in the blog post, but that's the gist of it. So I'm kind of pretty excited about that. I want to get into seeing, what exactly we can do with pure Lua plugins. So, okay. Well, we'll have a link to that in the show notes. Go check it out. And, yeah, let's get into this conversation here with Caleb. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. So let's start off, if you would, Caleb. Let's talk about you, and then let's talk about CBEffects, and then maybe we'll do some general particle effects conversation and stuff like that. How's that?
Okay.
Okay, so first of all, let's just start with the fact that I want to kind of get your age out of the way. I want to talk about that and then get it out of the way, because I want people to to be awed and inspired, but also we don't need to harp on it too much. How old are you now?
15.
So you're 15 years old. How long have you been developing software?
About 3 years.
Okay. Had you developed anything prior to that?
I have not.
No. You just got into it. What got you into developing software?
I'm not sure, actually. My dad showed me Game Salad, and from there on, I just loved it. So that's
okay.
How.
So you initially started out with Game Salad.
Mhm.
Okay. And did you publish apps using that?
I did not, because I made a lot of really junky apps with it.
Okay. Okay. And what made you move away from it?
Well, I had almost completed a full game when it trashed everything, accidentally, I guess. It just wouldn't load it. So Dad said, how about for your next one, you try Corona SDK, because evidently he just heard about Robert May, who released Bubble Ball, and so that's how it started.
Oh, excellent, excellent. And is your dad, he sounds like he's keeping an eye on this kind of stuff. Is he technically minded, or is he a developer? What's that? He's
pretty technically minded, but he's not a programmer.
Okay, so he's just sort of looking for things that you might be interested in.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I know that when I first started looking at building apps, Game Salad was definitely one of the things that I looked at, but I figured, well, I'm going to have to wind up learning the way that system works, and I didn't know that those skills were going to translate to any other platforms. So Corona was one of the reasons that I started looking at cross-platform and actually having a programming language and all that kind of stuff. So
in theory, Game Salad sounds good for beginners because you learn the basics of loops and functions and all that. But it turned out that basically none of my Game Salad knowledge went over to Corona, because a real programming language is just completely different.
Right. And I think that's true of any 100% visually oriented development tool. If that's all you do is just sort of drag stuff on the screen, then you're gonna have a hard time going to a programming language.
Yeah.
So Lua, then, is that your primary language?
That is, yes.
Okay. And so give us sort of a background then of CBEffects. Tell us, kind of like where it came from and that sort of thing.
Okay, so I was just browsing around one day, and I came across this sample in the sample code. This was quite a while ago. That was a particle sample, and it was just these green squares that were floating around. And somehow that just really resonated with me. I thought, wow, that's really cool. And then I said, hey, I wonder if I can write my own. So I wrote my own, and it was not so good. But then from there on, I was still interested in it, so I just kept working and working at it, and polishing and adding and taking away, until finally there it was. And I sent it out to Ed and another guy, and they were my first beta testers.
Oh, excellent. Well, Ed, I didn't know that. I didn't know you were one of the first beta testers.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I do recall having the conversation and reviewing it and being very enthusiastic. I didn't know you were 12 or 13 at the time. Otherwise, I probably would have started crying. But honestly, though, yeah, I was very impressed with the quality of it and the scope and the what you're trying to do with it. So.
Yeah, it seems like a very ambitious project.
I just wanted to get a little
early on. Go ahead, though.
No, I just wanted to get a little bit of sense because you were saying it was a couple of years ago. Because that's what blew me. I mean, again, not to harp on your age, but you know, when I saw that you were 15, I said, "Wow, that's really impressive." But what was more impressive to me is I said, "I've been seeing Dusk and CBEffects on the forums for what feels like years." So I go, this isn't, you know, an amazing 15-year-old developer. This is something, you know, I mean, and again, not even just that you were developing something, but you're developing something in a way that is community-minded, you know, transportable to somebody else. So, you know, I mean, so many of us, particularly when we're young, we're writing stuff that's great for us, but the fact that you're already thinking to that next level of packaging it, making it usable for other people, is awesome. And again, I don't want to harp on your age, but you're 15 now. This was years ago, correct? Because when did CBEffects and when did Dusk get released in their first versions?
I think I was 13.
Okay.
And Dusk was more recent, maybe another year after that. So.
Okay. But way to go, you. Seriously.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm not going to say anything more about age, but I do want to say, as just a general development person doing development, that you're a model to other folks in the sense that, you know, you just said, hey, this interests me, I can do it, I'm going to share it, and I'm not going to let questions and difficulties stop me, because you've got, I wanted to point out, you've got Dusk, CBEffects, Cyan, you've got a number of other projects here.
So it's not just the one then.
Perspective camera system.
Yeah.
I see something here called Crystalline, which looks like a game. And I think you had other projects released that you must have taken down at some time. Is that true?
Yeah, I've gone through several projects, but then the upkeep of them, along with my more major ones, I just had to kind of let them, you know,
languish.
They're still perfectly functional, but I don't like promote them because I can't give one-on-one support like I like to do with my bigger libraries.
Yeah, so you kind of felt like you wanted to release them, and yet just supporting them got to be kind of hard because you felt like, yeah, I can release it, but then it's not as good as I would like it to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The problem is I'm very perfectionistic, so I don't like to release it and say, here it is, but I can't help you with it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like to do that all the time. I'm kidding. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, Ed, as a library developer, I'm sure that, you know, Ed, you understand all the pains that go along with putting that out there and making it available to somebody else.
Mm-hmm. I got some questions, but I want to wait. So you were on a roll?
No, go ahead, because the questions that I have here, you know, are supposed to help spur conversation, and that's where we are. So go ahead. Okay,
so Caleb, I got maybe a hard question. You put a lot of time into this. It's in version 3.0 now?
3.2 actually. I just released 3.2.
Okay. So in this time, I know that we had this conversation early on, and that you mentioned it before, and then you did over time do the work. And the thing I want to talk about is documentation. So documentation. No, I'm not. This is no pressure. I totally understand. But how much time do you think you put into like coding versus trying to document this?
Well, that's not so good. I mean, I love to code on it, and I don't so much like to do documentation. So one time there was a pretty good set of documentation for it, for the parameters and all that. But then it kind of
That's
stopped
fatal.
happening.
Yeah.
So
Well, it got out of sync, right?
Yeah.
So would
I'm-
you say? Go ahead.
I'm
Go ahead.
planning on doing the documentation at some point.
Okay.
because-
This is not to pressure you, Caleb.
Yeah.
Don't feel pressure. I'm not saying go do documentation. Go do documentation. What I'm saying is do you find it true that no matter how hard you work on the documentation, you know, your changes sort of outstrip your documentation, and you find yourself looking back and saying, "Oh, that's not how it works anymore."
Definitely, yes.
Yeah.
Because I write the documentation and then it changes in some way, and then I deprecate it like in the Git commit message, but then I never put it in the documentation until eventually the documentation has a whole parameter that doesn't even work anymore.
Mm-hmm. So let me put a bug in your ear. I'm gonna put. Do you know what I mean when I say put a bug in your ear?
No.
I say that on the show, and people are like, "I don't know what you're saying." Put a bug in your ear means make you think about something, give you a thought, something like that. So if you were a C programmer, you'd be familiar with a tool out there, which name I can't remember right now. But basically, what it is you put little documentation snippets in the header, and then you can run it through this tool and produce like web pages and other output sources. And if anybody remembers the name of this tool, just yell it out. But I, too, have this problem with the documentation. And you might think in the future of instead of trying to write documentation as a standalone document, is add little comments at the top and use a tool like that and then just generate it. It'll never be as good as like a manual, but it's far better than nothing, and it's easier to maintain because it's right next to your code.
Is there a tool like that, Ed? Is there something that
Does anybody remember the name of it?
I came across?
I'll look it up while we are talking, and I'm not talking, and see if I can recall it.
Yeah, I came across a JavaScript doc tool the other day for something else that I was working on, and I was like, this would be amazing because you put all your comments in, and then the tool just sucks all those comments out and formats them into documentation. That would be awesome if we had something like that.
Yeah, because writing documentation sucks.
Well, like you said, it just changes all the time. Everything just changes.
You know what?
Are you speaking about LuaDoc?
Well, yeah, LuaDoc is one of the ones I've looked at, but that's not the one I'm thinking of.
Almost like a do press kit type of thing, which is different, but
this is old school. It's been around for like 10 years.
Caleb and Ed, both. This question kind of goes to both of you. Have either of you ever thought about collaborating with someone to help you do the documentation, or is that too much effort?
I just haven't ever thought of that.
Because it's all up on Git, it's all kind of like not necessarily. Well, I guess it's open source in the fact that everybody can see the source. So as you make these comments in the commits and stuff like that, would that be something that obviously the person would have to be committed and interested enough to spend their time, but it just seems like it would be a great way of sharing the load.
Mm-hmm. I got an answer if you don't, Caleb, but go ahead.
I don't have an answer. I've just never thought about that.
My answer is one, I have trouble letting go of ownership. Complete control. I'm a control freak when it comes to things that I write. Two, I would have to very much trust that they would not, like if it was an open source Git and people could modify it, I'd have to trust that they wouldn't like hose it up. I know you can go back and roll back the changes. So I've considered it though. I've considered completely, for example, opening up SSK to people to make all their own changes and add new content and extend it alongside me. It's just managing that is, how do you do it? It's like extra work.
Yeah, it could turn into a project. I mean, I've heard plenty of open source conversations where people say they spend time managing the commits and merging the changes and all that kind of stuff. The administrative pieces of that are are just as much time consuming as it is getting the help to do the work.
Yeah.
So, okay, just curious.
And I can only speak for myself here too, but it's totally worth noting that this stuff is up on Git. I don't believe you're charging for it. You say you accept donations, which in my book gives you a pass on the documentation thing. You know, I'm not paying you for it, so, you know, documentation's great, but I don't have a, you know, I can't, don't let anybody give you any guff on that, you know what I mean?
I'm perfectly happy to give him guff.
except for Ed. Let Ed give you guff.
Right, Sergey? Sergey's like, shut up, Ed. I'm always putting words in Sergey's mouth. It's good to relax.
So, okay, Ed, did you have a follow-up question on that?
No, I don't have a follow-up question.
So I have a question. Okay, first of all, does anybody else have a question? Jason, anybody? Sergey? No? Okay. So why publish it as a library? I mean, what kind of drove you to do that?
Well, mostly because of that same perfectionistic side of me. I don't like to write something that I write and then I can't reuse it because I've maybe taken shortcuts to assume that it's always going to be the same game. So, like, everything I write, I turn into a library, basically. Like, if I need A-star pathfinding for a tower defense game, which I recently needed, then I'll write the whole thing, but then I'll turn it into a completely packaged library, and I won't ever release it, but there it is as a library. Just because I don't like the feeling of writing something that I can't then, that I know isn't quite perfect because it's specifically for this. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, we've heard that from Ed a lot. You know.
Hey, you get the lazy programmer badge. Doesn't like to do the same thing twice. I hear it. That's a good thing.
Lazy programmer badge. I think we need to make that
bad,
up.
but I call myself the lazy programmer, so.
Well, it's a matter of not wanting to do things more than once. You know, you spent the time and energy, effort to figure it out that one time, and you want to be able to reuse it. It's the you know, kind of the holy grail of software.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why not? Okay. And the reason I asked that is because both you and Ed have said you don't want to give up control, or at least Ed said he doesn't want to give up control over the library, and he makes it publicly available to people so that they can access it, but yet then doesn't make it available for people to make changes. And some people, you know, the sole reason that they make it a public project like that is so they can get other people's help.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not driving, are you, Jason?
No, I think he just dropped us in the
narrow dashboard. I'm being lazy. I'm like precariously perching this thing on the dashboard.
Okay.
The very slopey dashboard. Sorry about that.
That's funny. All right.
Conversation was going so well till we got derailed on Jason's dashboard.
That's all right. That's all right. It's like it's we call that reality TV. So, is there anything in CBEffects that you'd like that doesn't exist today that you'd like to add?
Well, I've always, I don't know that I'll have time for it, but I've always really wanted to add a visual editor because a lot of people, they do things visually like that. I mean, I'm happy just to code everything, but it was back when it was on the other code, whatever you call that, code sharing place. A lot of people kept asking for a visual editor. So that's just kind of floating around in the cloud of things I'd like to do someday, but yeah.
If let's say that you could get the monetization part worked out, right? You could get people actually paying for some level of service or some level of access or just whatever, right? Just maybe they just want to fund the project. Would you ever consider doing that kind of development where you spent dedicated time to creating something like that?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, because that's the one thing that seems to that comes back around for most developers is, you know, they have plenty of a desire to do it, but you know, there's other things that have their attention, and if they could get, like, what was it? What's the Ed, help me out here. What's the editor that does? You can break your character up into little pieces.
Oh yeah, Spine.
Spine. You know, those guys, they wanted an editor, visual editor that they could use to do 2D animation, and they ran a Kickstarter project, or one of those, Indiegogo or Kickstarter, one of the two. And once they had all the funds for it, you know, they went to town. I mean, they hammered out a bunch of different platforms.
Is that how it began? Did it begin as an in-house tool for a game they were working on, or?
You know, I'd have to go back. I don't remember if they had maybe like a core base of stuff. But I know when they started adding support for other platforms, for sure, that they went out and raised funds for it, and then said, hey, when we get to this, if we raise this much money, we'll support this platform. If we have that, you know, that much money, we'll support that platform. And yeah, it just seems like a great way to, if people are, you know, it seems like a great way to feel out the market and see if people are willing to pay for it, and if they are, then yeah, it's a ready-made market. So anyway, okay, and so a visual editor, and then so any other future plans for CBEffects? Any kind of like tidbits that you're working on now?
Not really. Mostly just keeping it current and yeah.
Just maintenance, in kind of in maintenance mode right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's not like it's at the highest point it'll get without adding some new drastic feature. I mean, you can make basically whatever you want to make with it. It's easy to use. It fulfills all the goals that I had for it. So now it's just keeping it like that.
Yeah. Well, what were your goals?
Well, in the beginning, I was just wanting something that I could use to make every particle effect I've ever wanted with. I mean, because actually it started out because I thought it looked cool, but that's basically what it's turned into.
Would it be fair to say it started out more like a toy? In the sense that you were playing around with the idea and just experimenting?
Pretty much, yes.
That's not my advice, but advice I've read and been given is to start with the toy and then work from there.
Well, it seems like all great stories kind of start out that way, right? We built it for ourselves, or you know, it was something that we needed, you know, those types of things, and then out of that comes something that's actually usable, and then once it gets out into the general population, you find out that, oh, it's just not just me. Everybody has that same issue, and that's where those types of things seem to blow up, take off. Interesting. Okay.
So I want to recap a couple of points and ask you a question. So you started off with basically zero programming knowledge, right? I mean, you came in here and you said, I've been drag and dropping, which didn't give me a real basis for knowing anything about a language, syntax, globals, locals. You picked up Lua. Did you have any prior background? I mean, at the age of 12,
13.
you would have had no formal education in physics or any of geometry. I mean, I don't know what level, you know, the Wayback Machine for me, so it's hard to remember, but geometry, trigonometry, none of that, right?
None of that.
So basically, you had to come in here, you learned Lua, you learned a little bit of vector math, you learned a little bit about trigonometry and sines and cosines and, you know, all kinds of good stuff like that. Probably not too deep, but enough to get rolling to figure out the motions of your particles. Wow, that's amazing to me. Zero background education.
Yeah. So for all those people who say, I can't do it, or that's hard, suck it up.
I'm just gonna say, it's just in a word. I'm just gonna say, Caleb.
Yeah. No, but that actually ties into a question that I was thinking about, which is, as a student still, I assume, are there opportunities for this to be folded into the curriculum at your school? Have you worked with your teachers on? Because I think what you're doing is great, and I think, you know, looking ahead to your college and university education, and this is something I was terrible at in high school, there's more room for self-determination than I think sometimes people realize, and I think you're really well positioned if you find the right teacher. Has there been any of that? Have you been working with your teachers or your school at all?
Well, I homeschool, so...
Oh, okay. Never mind then. Sorry. But self-determination, then you get that.
That's a good...
I can definitely tell it's greatly helped me with my algebra skills, for one thing. I mean, because most of it is basically just algebra.
Best
So.
way to learn algebra, code it.
So yeah, you've had what do you call it? Practical, real-world experience at these abstract theoretical concepts.
You did it backwards, but that is cool. That is. I bet. I'm sorry, I talked over you, but I bet that you did things, and then you like did the learning. You were like, oh, we're in this lesson now. You're like, oh yeah, I recognize why I would want to do that.
And that is hugely important though, because I can remember having to memorize. Let's just call it what it is. Memorize formulas in algebra and in geometry that I had no context as to why those were important or how they how they fit together. I mean, even today, there's times when I'm going, oh, that's why I needed to take that trig class, because not every object, getting the curve or getting the surface of something is not always that straightforward, And but at the time, I had no real reference as to why it was important.
And yeah, the thing that it's probably I was most pre-taught from my programming with was vectors and graphing and all that. I mean, I just whizzed through all that in my math because it was just, oh yeah, I've done this a million times with all of my particles that I have to move around.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. So okay, so you're amazing. I'm sick of hearing it. I won't say it ever again. Yeah, in 2 minutes I will. But so you already said that CBEffects is at 3 point something. I can't remember the number, but it feels like pretty much it's rounded out. Sorry, it's not going to be going much further unless you get like a, hey, I really need this, or somebody comes to you with a question. So what's your next major project?
You mean like library or personal thing or whatever?
You got anything you're working on? You want to give us a little sneak peek, or we hear you?
Hey, I hear someone playing. Whatchamacallit?
Sorry, yeah, that's actually me. I downloaded. Sorry, I didn't do it in advance, but I downloaded Crystalline, and
Wow.
I guess my phone is. I thought I had muted it, but it's Bluetoothed with my car stereo. So.
You know, I've heard those sound effects millions of times, having to play the whole thing. So the second it happens, whoop, I know what that is. Anyway, so I forget what we were talking about.
You got any major plans? Any new projects you want to reveal? You thinking about doing anything new and interesting?
Well, I'm mostly working on personal things that aren't really like I can't show it to you because it's not quite at a level where it's showable.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and of course Dusk I'm still working on. I still have big plans for it. And yeah.
Okay, so yes, but not going. No reveal.
Yeah.
So you've been with Corona now, using Corona for about 3 years. Do you think you're going to continue using Corona, or have you considered? Now, I'm not saying leave, and I'm not saying you should leave, but I think what it sounds like to me is you've gotten to a point where you might actually start thinking about 3D stuff, like that'd be the next branch out for you. Have you considered doing any other game development?
Yes, I definitely have. I've looked at a lot of other options, and right now I think Corona is right now the best for me. I mean, because I was once trying to make my own game engine, and it got to a pretty nice point in C++. But then I realized that, this is all already done. And as much as I love to publish a game that's something I already have, I mean, Corona gives you cross-platform and the best language in the world to code in, and all that. So, I mean, and then I looked at others, the leading 3D one, which Unity, it was a little convoluted, and I hated the languages that went with it.
Did you say Unity?
Hmm?
Unity?
Yes. I looked at Unity, and I mean, it can do its 2D stuff if it wants to, but somehow I don't. It's a 3D engine. I mean, I can stay with Corona if I want to do 2D. If I ever want to get into 3D, you probably use it and get over my hate of the three languages that it uses. But
You know, that's interesting that you say that, because that I've gone back and forth evaluating Unity. You know, in the early days I evaluated it as a development platform, and then of course they came out with different versions and different features and stuff like that, and it always kind of draws you back to see what they're doing. And yeah, they're as you said, the languages are sort of convoluted. There's multiple ways to do things, and they're not necessarily friendly languages. You know, you need a little bit of experience before you jump in, and then it seems like because it's rooted in 3D, even though when they added the 2D stuff, it seemed like the interface, all the visual interfaces, all the switches and all that, and the knobs that you had to turn and all that stuff like that was still so very well overwhelming. Is that what?
3D capabilities of it are moving around a plane in 3D that's just viewed as 2D. I mean, you have a 2D tool for that. You can, I guess, if you really love Unity as a product, you could use that, but it just seemed so backwards to me. I mean, Unity can stay in its zone, Corona can stay in its zone, and they're just different, you know.
Yeah, yeah. It does seem like the people who are in the Unity community who would want to maybe do a 2D game, who are already familiar with the controls and stuff, you know, would be fine for them. But someone starting out, it seems like it would definitely be an uphill battle.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking for myself too, coming from, you know, Corona was my entry point into app development as well. You know, my dipping my toes into Unity, its IDE is heavy on the eye. It's really integrated. You've really got to buy into that. And I think if you're into that, that's great. But I'm sure Charles can relate to this, because I know you're a Photoshop user going way back. It's like when a new version of Adobe Creative Suite comes out, and you're like, God, I've spent 2 years figuring out this, and now you're moving everything on me. For me, with Corona, I love the simplicity of just give me a text editor. Give me a text editor and give me the simulator, and that's all I need.
Yeah.
And when I dipped my toes into Unity, I was like, oh God, I have to figure out where I've got windows and windows and windows, and it was very off-putting to me personally, although some people may love it.
Yeah, and that's definitely my preference. I like to actually write the code as much as possible. I mean, I love Apple products and iOS and all that, but using Xcode and having to go through Interface Builder for everything, I like to write X equals a new window, not plus add new window, drag it to where you like it. I mean, that's just how I work. And Unity, you can either use the visual editor or kind of be on your own. So.
Yeah, that abstraction in Xcode was definitely it definitely was a brain teaser for me, because a long time ago, seems like a million years ago, I worked with Visual Studio to do mobile apps back when Pocket PC was popular. And in that case, you dragged elements onto the screen, and then you could set properties for them, and then you would like double click that thing, and then it would open up, and you would have like what they called a code behind, and you would map basically code to that UI element. But then in Xcode, it's kind of like a hybrid where you drag things onto the screen, and then you write some code, and then you have to drag and associate those two things together. And for me, that was like, it made one of my eyes twitch. I was like, I really don't get it. So it took a while to kind of get that. But with Corona, it just seemed, or Lua, it just seems like you get to write the code.
Yeah.
I'm more a programmer than a visual guy. I got a question for Caleb here.
Yeah.
And welcome to the show, Barry. I just saw you show up. Caleb, no gaming stuff, no CBEffects. You still got a long time ahead of you to make this decision. But if I were to ask you right now, what do you think you'll be doing in the future? What do you think you'll be doing in the future? As like for a career or for your whatever you want to do in life.
Well,
There's
that's
a
a really
easy
difficult
question.
question.
Ed's looking for things to invest in.
I'm looking for answers. I'm just kidding. No, go ahead, shoot.
Because I'm really into a lot of different things. I mean, I play the piano. I've been playing the piano for a long time. I do computer programming. I love math, just as math, and I even do some art, like drawings. And I mean, so far the thing that I could see myself doing, like as a career, would be programming. But I mean, I love so many other things that there's really I don't really know.
Okay, well that's a perfectly fine answer, and you know it's actually a great answer in the sense that if I understand what you're saying. What you're saying is I'm familiar with this, and so it's easy for me to say that that sounds like something I could do, and it's hard for me to put a career to all these other things I like to do because they're a little bit more nebulous. But the good thing about your answer, in my mind, is that when you say, hey, I could do programming as a career, really what you're saying is I could do programming, but you know what? I could wrap all these other things around it and do something that uses that and my loves and skills and do something interesting.
Yes, and on that note, for example, my next game is not a puzzle game. This is the personal project I said I could that wasn't to a point. But like I'm writing the music for it myself. I'm drawing all the art myself. And it's not like the simple neon graphics for the crystalline that I had. I mean, it's a platformer, and yeah. So I'm able to kind of wrap all that up into that project.
I think too the world is changing in the sense that I think when us older guys were younger, if you said I was going to be a programmer, you know, when I grow up, that had a fairly narrow connotation in terms of what it meant. Maybe you could go into games, maybe you could be, you know, writing software. Now, saying, you know, I want to be a software programmer, well, that's got its legs in everything these days. So there's going to be opportunities for you to take these skills and integrate them with your interest in arts. And I mean, I say this as a guy who went to college for theater. So I think it's awesome. I think all this stuff, I think your future is going to be about finding where these passions and interests intersect.
Well, you know, Jason, I think we were. I hate to use the term renaissance, but I feel like we're kind of in a renaissance where it's not just you don't just have one skill. You have, you know, we have a flourishing of multi-talented, multi-skilled, interdisciplined people. Whereas, you know, maybe at one point, yeah, programming was sort of at a very narrow field where you just worked with computers. You know, just being the guy who could go into or the girl who could go into the room there and understand how to work the computer. That was very important. Now it's more like, well, what are you going to do with the computer? What are you going to create with the computer? And it's very a creative space that we're in, or creative time that we're in.
And I think, Caleb, again, I'm harping on you as a young person, but I think it's fantastic that you're so accomplished. And I think you're part of a generation that is very computer literate, that, you know, everybody your age is going to be able to say, I'm a social media expert when they're 18. But I think you've invested yourself in a way that's going to really, anybody who takes the time to look in is going to see that you're not just you're 15 in 2015. Obviously, you know how to use a computer. Everybody who's 15 in 2015 knows how to use a computer. But you've invested yourself in a way that really just sets you up. And I think you've set yourself up, even if you're not programming, in the world that's coming about. You know, the skills that you're developing now are just going to be awesome for you. So, go you.
Yeah.
So, Caleb, among all the things you know how to do, what are some things that you don't know how to do in Corona? Is there anything out there that you would, you know, you wish, hey, I wish I knew how to do that, or somebody would do that and I could look at it?
I have not done a lot of networking in Corona, just because I've never needed it.
Mhm.
And I haven't looked into the particle system of Corona, like the built-in one for Particle Designer and all
Mhm.
that. And that might be about it.
So you've done. I heard you say something about doing some pathfinding and some other stuff like that. So have you done any examination of genre mechanics, things like that? You know, you talked about doing tower defense, which would imply that you'd have to do pathfinding and spawning and difficulty increases and the ability to have modular elements so that you should create different kinds of towers, things like that. So, not really a good question. It kind of faded from being a question to a statement, but I'm trying to dig into what. I guess my question is knowing what you know about Corona and knowing what you know from your experience working with Corona, what are some things that you feel like are maybe missing or things that you wish were out there? If you can think of anything. It's a hard question.
I can't really think of anything that's really that way. I mean,
So nothing pops. Nothing pops top of mind.
just there that I can think of instantly.
Okay.
I mean, probably if I thought long enough and hard enough, I could find some corner of something that's not there. But
My suspicion is that Caleb, when he comes across it, he will he'll know he'll know it, and then he'll just go write a whole library for it.
I don't need to answer that question because I'll just go write it, which is good.
I've got a question, and again, I think this points to somewhat of a generational thing because I think it'll be different. Like, what's your favorite game? What's the game you wish you could, like? It's easy for me. I want to be Tim Schafer. I wish I could create Day of the Tentacle. It's like, to me, that's gaming's all downhill from there. I'm sorry, but like, what do you love to play? What do you want to make?
I have two games that I would consider the best games of all time. One is The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask, which is just Zelda, you know. I mean, you can't really beat that. And the other is Rayman Legends, because, I mean, something about Rayman just really, I just love it because I'm naturally a very quirky kind of person. And so the art style in Rayman Legends, I love the art style. It's beautiful, it's odd. The platforming in Rayman is just impeccable and amazing, better than any Mario game out there. The level design is just amazing. I don't want to keep going on and on about it. I'm being an ad for Rayman, but I mean,
do you have any platformers, in your stable of not finished projects?
Yes, I'm working on a platformer right now for that particular reason, which is actually I'm trying to blend everything I really love about Rayman and everything I really love about Zelda into one game. So yeah.
Cool.
That's what my next project platform is.
Zelda. I mean, of course, the franchise goes way back. But yeah, I've spent hours and hours and hours just playing Zelda. Just, I don't know what the attraction is to that game. But
I got to tell you, Caleb, I'm sorry, you're just wrong. You're just wrong. This is not Zelda. This is Zelda.
There you go.
Yeah.
Actually,
it's the age gap, my friend.
Actually, I am playing Link's Awakening on my 3DS.
That's a great game.
You can buy it through the eShop.
Okay.
So yeah.
I've never played. I stopped around the Nintendo 64 point. I stopped owning them, so I haven't really played any of the later Zeldas. But the 8-bit and the 16-bit ones, the Game Boy, the original Game Boy one was fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and
I played
all those.
This is Link, not Zelda. The character is Link.
Yeah.
All detail important.
I played the first 8-bit version, and now I'm playing Link to the Past. Which is amazing. I think it's the best one in the entire
Oh, and ground.
verse.
I mean, now everybody's got the dark level, the inverted world, but that was insane at the time.
Hmm. And like you can buy all of those old Zeldas on the 3DS eShop. So
Yeah, but you don't get the gold cartridge that way.
I mean, everybody always goes on and on like on the internet about how Link's Awakening is the best Zelda of all time. So I mean, I'm playing that now. It's all of its pixelated glory.
I think those games that I mean, the 3D stuff is great. Games are getting more and more realistic and all this stuff like that. But there's something about letting your imagination fill in, what happens on the other side of that cave entrance or whatever that is. I think that makes a game really top notch. And maybe that's a good thing because you don't have all those graphics or whatever. That you just leave it up to the player's mind.
Yeah, and that's the weird thing about whenever I first started playing Link's Awakening. At first I said, wow, this is going to be so cool. I'm going to be playing one of the original retro Zeldas. But then like 5 minutes into it, I was playing it as a Zelda game. Despite all of its oldness, I mean, I just got right into it, even with its top-down 2D everything. It was an odd sensation.
Good game design is good game design. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah, classic stuff. It just works. It just works. I remember. I mean, if we want to just for a second indulge me, I played Zork. Who remembers Zork? It was a text-based game where I don't even think it came with a manual. You were just kind of like, it said something and then you were like typing in commands to try to figure out what was the right thing to say. And you spent a lot of time on that playing just because the picture in your head was amazing. So I think that those types of good game design, just basics, you can't beat it. So Barry, what are you playing there?
This is a demo that I kept pasting a link to that you clearly never downloaded.
No, I downloaded it. I just couldn't get past the cave. I didn't know how to get to anything else.
Good save.
Yeah.
No, this is my latest version of the tile engine, which we talked about briefly before you tiled. Actually, one of the things that I think everyone has to do while testing a top-down one is just steal Zelda graphics. So this one, I mean, it has. I've not really focused on the collision with this one, but it's got you can travel through the areas and what have you. So that's just a very basic one. The other one was because Caleb was talking about platformers. So let's see how well this actually works here. So this is the other. Obviously this runs at 60 frames on my old computer. So I'm just working on it. It's got the platforms which don't actually collide yet. This is my water shader, my first proper attempt at a shader. So the bottom half of the screen has a reflection. You can see the layer, even though it's very slow. Obviously update.
Yeah.
But that's fine. And because I've been messing around, I did get convinced to mess around with the shaders. So this is another thing that I'm trying at the minute. This is just using various snapshots and layers to lighting. So it's very traditional in a level to have a halo around your player. But this is a test with halos of different lights and stuff and combining them, and it all seemed to work. I mean, this took me about 30 minutes to get it working just as a test, and I'm happy with it. There you go. That's it. I mean, I love interesting one. I got one of those Google, what do they call the Google Cardboard 3D things?
Yeah.
And you stick your mobile phone in. So I quickly knocked up a test for that. Can't see it. If you use the device, you can't play it because obviously there's no input. So I need to get a Bluetooth joystick or something. But if you're really good, you can go not cross-eyed, but you open your eyes. You can actually see the 3D in these
It's
things.
like
with
like do the magic eye
glasses.
book things from the 80s.
That's exciting, yeah. Yeah, I was great at them. So I was using this as a playground, but I need to get more organised. I've been doing a list of what's needed to actually finish a game. But when they started talking about platformers and then talked about Zelda, I was going, oh no, come on, this is just not a coincidence at all.
That's hilarious.
I was going through old discs, and I did this about 10 years ago in Director, a program to take in Zelda maps and strip it down to its component tiles. Image maths, you can the same. Like you can do it manually, probably, but a long one thing. And so it compacted all of the screenshots down. So when you're talking about Zelda and stuff, today I was going down memory lane looking at all this Zelda stuff, and it was awesome.
That's fun.
Well, Caleb, after all this Zelda talk, taking nothing away from the magnificence of Zelda, you're absolutely wrong. Day of the Tentacle is the best video game ever, and if you've never played it, you need to go play it.
Okay.
And then you should build a nice 2D adventure game library for Corona, and we can all use it.
There you go, Caleb. There's your takeaway for today.
Oh.
Hey, Barry, you still there?
I am, yeah. Hello.
Okay. Yeah, I was typing your name, and I think I blocked you for a minute or something. I couldn't hear you.
Oh,
Your
yeah,
name
yeah.
starts with a B. So, sorry
Everyone
about that.
tells me it didn't, yes.
That's how I roll, man.
Okay. Well, hey, does anybody have any final questions for Caleb before we wrap things up for today? No? Nothing? Okay. Well, Caleb, tell us where everyone can get CBEffects.
So it's just on GitHub at my username page, whatever you call that, and you can alternatively,
Okay.
github.com/gimbalcoding/CBEffects.
Okay. Yeah, we'll put a link in the show notes. It's probably the easiest to get, and yeah. So thanks for putting it together. I just want to appreciate the fact that you've put all this work and effort into doing it, and continue to maintain it and keep it up and keep it running. So
And
we look forward to seeing. Yeah.
We forgot to mention that. You know that, right? We used it in one of our previous shows to do one of the sample games.
Oh, really?
See? No, you're busted. You're not watching the show. Right. No, we do a series. We've started to do a series where we reproduce game mechanics, and we made Zigzag Boom. Or Zigzag, was that? Yeah, Zigzag Boom. Anyways, we used CBEffects to do the particle trail for that, if you know what I'm talking about. So, thanks to you.
Go back and check that out. I think it's 126 maybe? Hangout 126 or so? In there somewhere. Somewhere between 126 and like 134, 135.
You've got a better memory than I do.
Oh, I forget, but I
You're the man.
I hung on to that one, yeah. All right, well, yeah, thanks, Caleb, for being here and for hanging out with us and for spending all the time with producing the library. And we'll put a link to the show notes to all of that stuff. So go check out Caleb's library, and contact him if you have questions. Obviously, he is interested in your ideas and making the thing better. So let's collaborate on it and build something great. So. Thanks for being here today. Everybody that's on the panel, you guys hang out after the show and we'll talk some more. But thanks for watching today. Thanks for being with us. And we'll be back here next Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific to talk all about mobile app development using Corona SDK. Until then, have a great week and happy coding.
Adios.